This begins lesson 2 of least squares adjustments, which we will continue covering basically the same area, utilizing different selections of polygons and utilizing various control that we have within here. So let's begin. Now this time I'm going to turn these control points on. So we're going to get our selection tool, turn on maintain control. We're going to come in here, it's 200 640, 220 640. Now you saw those highlight as I turned them on. Now you see their point ID come on. Okay? Now they are already associated. So there's no need to associate them. They've already been matched or associated to the parcel points when I brought the control in like we saw in loading your control. Now I'm going to go ahead and close this. And actually I'm just going to select one more time the same area. Just this area right here. Once again, you see that it's the same selection, same lines, same points. These are not involved, but they are turned on. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust. It's going to come back with the same residuals, so you can just leave it. You run, completed, accept. There it is. You see the shift again. And I'm going to clear this. You can vaguely see it here, but it looks like everything is right on these points again. So I'm going to say OK. Clear the selection. We're going to zoom in on one of those control points now. We are basically as far as you can zoom in. We could go a little further, but it's not really going to prove anything. There's nothing that you can zoom in closer. So it adjusted to the point. Probably wondering, well, why did it adjust if it wasn't selected? Well, the one thing you need to know about least squares in this is whatever control is in your viewing window that you have on the screen that is selected or turned on will adjust. Now you notice we have a little bit more deformation over here, about the same over here, and about the same over here. So, you know, there's not much difference whether we just select this and we had these turned on or off. It still adjusts, it still gives a little. This isn't too drastically bad. Like I said, this can be fixed easily, that I'll show in a later video. Basically, it's in merge courses where you select the polygon and then you select the lines of that polygon that you want to merge the courses. And what it does is it merges these two courses into one course between this line. So you don't end up with this kink. Now, if that 16th was supposed to be there, well, there may not be much you can do about it unless you have a coordinate for it. But like I said, there is no survey plat that documents that these 64s should be there. So you could readily just disregard these and get rid of these parcel points. They do not serve any survey purpose. Okay, so we see what happened that way now. Let's go ahead and undo this again. And hopefully you're seeing that it's very simple for you to run several of these in a short period of time And it's actually fairly quick to even load some of the control. But this time, we're never probably going to use the control from GMM. Because what I want to try to do is maintain all my distortion within the area that's being adjusted. Well, I had experimented before by just using section corners here. This one was actually surveyed, this here and this around here. Well, it still provided some distortion down here. Just because you got to think of all this as kind of like a fishnet, with nice square holes in the fishnet. If you tug in one area, how it's going to deform the rest of the fishnet. So that's basically what this network is doing. It tugs and pushes and pulls and stretches by whatever control is pulling it that direction. So this time we're going to go to our maintain control points. All of them that I want are turned on with the exception of these section corners. I'm going to turn these back on. And as I turn them on, you'll probably see them come up with their attribution. Hopefully also this shows you that you have multiple options. What I did was just got the LX file from WinGMM, took the NAD27 Latin longs, took them to CorpsCon and converted them to the NAD83 UTM that Nevada's database is in. The reason Nevada ended up with UTM is the entire state of Nevada falls within one zone. So it makes sense. I don't particularly care for UTM, but that's just a personal thing. But it made sense for maintaining GIS control statewide. Since we're in one single zone, we don't have to worry about going from one state plane zone to another as we cross the state. Whereas the state of Nevada has 3 state plane zones, east, central, and west. So I concede to the fact that UTM is probably the best for our GIS purposes. And most of the counties, I won't say most, but some of them and a lot of the GIS individuals in the state do like using the UTM for that same personal reason, that there are no zones to worry about crossing from one to the other. We can have one entire state fairly seamless. So that's fairly unique to the state of Nevada. There's a couple other states that fall within a zone. Okay, so we turn those back on. I'm going to close this. And we can see that they are all attributed now. They're on and active. So the first thing I'm going to do is they're in the viewing screen. I'm going to just adjust the same amount of data I did last time. Or select, I should say. I'm going to select here. Same thing. Go to maintain control. Yeah, now it wants to start getting a little spooky on me. There we go. And say adjust. We know it works within 15 meters. Here, I'll tell you what, just for grins, we'll change this to 5. Now I'll say run. You see where it said it failed. Closed points reported, no closed points were found. Line points reported, offset more. So 0 points found, offset more than the report limits. So you can see everything here is close to 30 some feet. I mean, this is a summary of what everything is. And actually, I think we can run at 12. But anyways, to get back out of this, you just say cancel, and it takes you right back to that same window. Now, a thing I should probably bring up before I forget is you can browse to where the full fabric adjustment report will go. So we can set this to go to one specific area. I'm going to go ahead and set that now, and I want it to go to where I'm working. And I'm going to have it saved there. And we'll take a look at that when it gets done. So I'm going to change this back to 15. And you say, well, why is it, why are we doing that much? Well, the least squares we're doing in here isn't really adjusting anything other than the polygons. It's a least squares adjustment, moving the polygons in a unique method to align them to the control that you have, and then the points around it. Okay, so we're at 15. We're going to say run, completed. We're going to say accept. Now, this time we can kind of see, well, looky here. We didn't select that in the selection, but it's holding this line and these LX points in our fabric. We don't have any kinks or bearing breaks along this line or this line now, which we did earlier. We do have a little bit here. That's partially due to these polygons being adjusted and shifted a little bit. So it did tweak this section line slightly. This one, of course, did because it had a control point to go to. Okay, so now this time we're going to just say okay. We're going to accept what it looks like. We're going to go ahead and clear. And now we have no disruption somewhat. I mean, we still get a couple kinks here, but like I said, these can be fixed. We'll talk about that later, and I'll demonstrate that later. And you notice that very little distortion outside of the section lines and even inside the section lines now. Since this was held in place, we aren't getting any distortion of this line shifting any, the township line. So there is probably still a reason you may want to utilize either the LX points to maintain cartographic pleasing results, which is all we're doing here. We're holding the parcel points to the coordinates as they were brought in. Now, one thing we may want to look at, I brought some other points in along the one line that I'm going to demonstrate later. But the one thing when you do a conversion, this is pretty much standard for any conversion from NAD 27 to NAD 83, and especially if you're going to UTM, but pretty much just 27 to 83, your accuracies are 12 to 18 centimeters. Okay, this is coming out of CorpsCon. This is a CorpsCon report. So there was another way I did an adjustment, and these were still bulging out to the east. So I was like, well, I can just bring those in and manually put those in so it doesn't do that. But holding these section corners and just doing this area here, the southeast quarter of section 5, it doesn't disrupt that section line. I'm going to demonstrate if I select the area all the way around the section line, the section lines. Make an entire selection of the polygons next. So everything remains where it is. This helps maintain cartographic pleasing without major distortions within the network. Okay, one more time. I'm going to undo this. And we're back to where we were. Our control is not here, our LX. They are. I did verify these LX coordinates. to the parcel point, and they vary from about 12 to 15 centimeters, which is about 3/10 of a foot to a half foot. Very negligible in this data that we're working with. I mean, when you're looking at reliabilities, I think that we're like near 100 feet on these parcel points in the LX file. So here we are back to this point. Okay, well, what if we adjust selecting the area entirely around this? So come back, get my selection tool. I'm going to window let's just say I wanted to adjust that. So we can see everything that's going to adjust now, because to include these lines, now I'm affecting the lines in the adjoining township. I'm affecting lines outside the section lines. The yellow are the actual lines. The aqua or cyan is the actual highlighted polygons. The yellow, like I said, is the lines. You can see the points that are all selected. You see the points on the perimeter are not. So once again, we're going to do an adjustment. Going to say adjust. You know, it slows down a little bit with the larger the areas, but it's not too bad. I'm going to say run. It completed. I'm going to say accept. Now, I think you can see much more distortion now. So we were better off just selecting the area inside and not outside. You can see where this now has shifted off. Until I say OK, these lines for the second division won't shift over to here. So looking at it here, you can see how much of a shift. Well, we expected in here, but look how much these are shifting now, and some of these have shifted for no, I don't want to say for no reason. It did because of the adjustment. But there's no data or no control, no survey data, nothing to support having this distortion other than the amount of area that we selected. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. I'm going to clear the selection. And now you can see where we've got distortion all the way over to about midsection here. A little more distortion down here. A little bit more distortion here. Now this straightened out some with that. But here we are, we're affecting areas that we probably didn't need to affect. That's the point I'm trying to point out here. When we just selected the area that we really wanted to adjust, it adjusted that and held everything else in here. When we selected this entire area, it's trying to adjust that entire area with this control mixed with this LX control. This shifted over, but this was held in place, so it's shortening up that line. See how this is bulging over? Well, we could probably put in those other intermediate points here. What is it? 400, 660, 620. 640, 620. And that would straighten this up. But why not just do what I did in the last adjustment? So I'm actually going to undo this again. And we're back to where we started. Now, all I really want to demonstrate in this video is just to give you an idea what you can play with in least squares. I guess the point I'm trying to get across here is probably just select the area that you have closed polygons, control for the closed polygons. You notice I did not select these, but this still shifted to these points when I just selected the southeast quarter. And these points, since they were turned on, held in place, and we got the minimal distortion for all the data around us, other than these 64th corners here that, like I said, we can handle at a later time, or I'll demonstrate at a later time. So for right now, I'm going to end this one. This is more just to kind of show least squares, and adjusting the polygons is more of what we're doing than adjusting any data. You have to look at it. All these were probably already done in some type of least squares from the field work, or they're accepted as to where they are. So they don't need to be adjusted like we were doing in WinGMM, where we have control, and the points weren't even ending up on the control anyways, because we were giving them reliabilities that they could float and shift, which, coming at the time from the private sector into GMM, just did not make any sense to me. But then I used to work in much higher precisions of centimeter or less, and you held everything pretty much fixed. And then when you got outliers in your network, you had to figure out why, because it generally meant you had bad data in between. Well, we already know all this data has been verified and approved from a plat. And that's going to be one other later video lesson I'll be showing, is inputting for this area here the record information. I did experiment with it, doing it prior to adjustment, and it gets kind of kinky and weird because none of this data that is actually in there is record data, because it came out of a regional adjustment. So once you do an adjustment, you can enter this record data and it gives you a closure, and it's actually another tool for verifying and doing your review on a plat before it gets approved. Anyways, I'm going to end this lesson for now, and I'll get back with you later when we start working on this up here.